Radar Update. My name is Daniel Vallis from InformedChristians.com, a website ministry devoted to discerning current events from a Christian perspective. This is just a watch. It's not a prediction. We're going to look at current events that are already going on and try to understand the times so we have a better understanding of what we should be doing right now. A lot has been going on. We've been particularly looking at the calls of peace and safety, which the Bible warned us about would happen. And when you hear that, that means sudden destruction is coming. And so we saw a good bevy of calls at very high levels for peace and safety. And now we're almost in a lull and the calm before the storm. But we see the world events and geopolitical events coming together that things are very tense. And we can tell that there is a storm on the horizon. Things are not getting better. So in light of that, we need to be sober, we need to be vigilant, we need to be ready. We need to live as Christ wants us to live. We need to set off and let go and trim off the world so that when Christ returns, He will find us shining bright and He will see more of Him in us than seeing the world in us. A lot has been going on just these past few days. I just want to recap some of what's been going on. Back on November 30th, right around the time of the climate conference start, a new TV spot came out on ESPN and it showed one new scene from the upcoming Star Wars The Force Awakens film. And this one scene showed the Resistance X-Wings and the Millennium Falcon flying to a base on some moon. But instantly you could tell just from the layout of the scene it's very reminiscent of Saturn and the moons and evokes a lot of that imagery. And this was just the one single new footage that was released on that day. So it definitely brought attention to itself, this particular scene, its particular build-up. So it was no surprise then that just a few days after that, on December 3rd, NASA releases a stunning new photo of Enceladus of the Cassini spacecraft peering up at the icy moon from just below the plane of Saturn's rings. So supposedly NASA's spacecraft Cassini took a picture of Saturn's moon, called Enceladus, right above the rings. Almost very similar to the shot that was shown in Star Wars. Very suspicious that both these come out only basically 2 days apart. Very suspicious. Now, as I always say, whenever NASA releases something or pushes something to the forefront and makes a big deal about something, you automatically have to look at what is the mythological God associated with whatever planet or body that they're talking about, because that's the meaning, that's the pattern, that's the message that they're trying to push and drive home at that point. So with Enceladus, in Greek mythology, Enceladus was one of the giants, from the fallen angels. He was one of the giants and was said to be buried under Mount Etna in Sicily. And he was said to be the cause of earthquakes and volcanic eruptions. He was a fallen angel, one of the offspring. And as we talked about before, the Greek mythology has its reference in reality from the fallen angels and their offspring. That's where the Greek mythology and a lot of the other Egyptian and Roman, that's where it all came from. There is a real basis to all of these. The superhuman abilities that they had, the demigod, the uberments at that time, they corrupted the seed of mankind at that time. And that was one of the reasons why God sent a flood, because they almost had completely corrupted the entire DNA and genetic makeup of mankind. Only Noah was perfect still, and his family. So God preserved him. He was also righteous, and he feared God. And he was the one who was used to repopulate the entire earth. But then the Bible remarks that they came again and tried to do the same thing again as well. But then Jesus also told his disciples when he comes back, when Jesus Christ is revealed, when the Son of Man comes again, it's going to be in the days of Noah when a lot of the same thing is going on. We find ourselves right in that window right now. We find ourselves still within the 40-day window of after the anniversary of when the flood began. So literally we're in the days of Noah, but then also with all the wickedness going on in the world and other things that we can see, we're right there. So it's very suspicious that these two events, actually it's really not suspicious. I'm almost not surprised anymore when I see this stuff coming out. But NASA sending out the message, Star Wars sending out the same message, and then we noticed this earlier in the spring, this next pattern. We noticed whenever NASA made a big push of Enceladus, what happened? There were major volcanic eruptions and earthquakes within like a 2-day window of that announcement. Why? Because they're using the one as a message. And then we talked in our recent video of how to take over the world 101 of how easy it is to trigger earthquakes and volcanoes. These are all linked together. Then guess what happened today? In Nicaragua, a slumbering volcano erupted for the first time in over a century. Wow. A historic volcano eruption. A day after they make an announcement of Enceladus, the fallen angel, the giant who's responsible for volcanoes and earthquakes. Very suspicious. This volcano in Nicaragua is erupting for the first time since 1905. It had been showing some minor seismic activity over the past decade, but otherwise it was pretty quiet over the past century. This eruption started on Monday and started building, so it's across a couple days, but the timing is in this exact same time frame when they were announcing Enceladus. And then today, Mount Etna in Sicily, yes, the same volcano which Enceladus is supposed to be buried under. Today, Mount Etna, Sicily's tallest peak and active volcano, erupted after 2 years of silence. And the scientists were saying it was among the most violent eruptions from the volcano in the past 2 decades. Does this not strike you as very, very suspicious? They announce Enceladus, there's a volcano that hasn't erupted in 110 years, pops its cork, and then Mount Etna, the very mountain which he's buried under supposedly, that pops its cork after 2 decades. And then there's a major earthquake today. It happened far from land, so it didn't hurt anybody or cause any tsunamis, but a 7.1 earthquake in the South Indian Ocean. Very significant earthquake. Happened today, along with the Etna volcano and with the Nicaragua volcano. These are connected. These are not just random events. They are being triggered. And then I found out today that the Time magazine, Time, emphasis on time, the Time magazine cover for December, which is what just started, are the 2 one-eyed robots from Star Wars: The Force Awakens. I thought that very suspicious because we talked about this in previous videos, the emphasis on the one-eyed individual. And that's what they're a reference to. It harkens to that symbolism, the archetype, the pattern. You know, they only have one eye, the other one's a projector. And it shouldn't surprise us how they're linking this pattern of Apollyon, with time. We've talked a lot about that. And then also today, surprise, surprise, there's an article about Hitler. I don't even really go looking for this stuff on the news. Just in my normal news browsing, I just happen to come across this stuff. They're pushing it out there. I don't have to even look for it. But the Daily Mail did a little feature on showing pictures of inside Hitler's bunker where the Nazi leader plotted to invade England. It is the remains of the last command center used by Adolf Hitler outside Germany. And this one was located in France. Very interesting, the timing of all this in context, everything that we've been studying, that they just happened to drop mention of, oh, let's show you some pictures inside an underground bunker of Hitler. Very suspicious. And we've talked a lot of, even in Star Wars, the whole pattern is off the Nazi theme, and it's a massive parable that easily even follows the Nazi rise to power, the leadership, the fascism, all that. It's a massive parable of that. And even the Star Wars creators and directors, they've even talked openly that it follows a lot of those themes, and a lot of those themes were used in it. And people think that's just theming and, spicing it up to give it a dark edge. No, there's a reason why they're following it too. It's more than just creative. It's because there is actual meaning to it and ties in with a lot of other things that we've been seeing too as well. And of course, the main emphasis of the First Order. That's what the bad guys group in the new Star Wars Awakens film is. That's what the emblem on that banner is. It's called the First Order. And what is the mystery of iniquity already working toward right now? To bring order out of chaos. That's their motto. Which means they're going to have to create chaos first. And they've already been building up and getting things together for the perfect storm. That's going to be the sudden destruction that the Bible talks about. There's going to be the storm, and then out of those ashes, the phoenix will arise. The leader's going to arise out of that and make a covenant with many. And the emblem of this order, this first order, as they call it, that emerges from all this, reminds us instantly of the CERN technology. A very similar outer shape, and then almost the exact same central technology shape on their Atlas detector. Atlas. There's a whole mythological symbolism behind all that, too. We've talked about that before. All of this is coming together. And it's harkens, of course, also to the Alice detector. We've talked about that. This is going to be involved in it. One of the interesting puzzles of this new Star Wars The Force Awakens that's coming up is the main villain in it. There's a lot of questions about him. And that's one of the rumors going around on the internet of where he's coming from, who is he. But it's interesting to note that several people are starting to piece together clues from various Star Wars prequels and other Star Wars movies of noticing that it's probably going to be an evil villain who comes back via a clone. It's going to be his clone. And what is the theme that we've been talking about all this time? We've talked about in the Antichrist Returns. It's going to involve clones. There's going to be an attack of the clones. All of this is a massive parable, and it's a massive messaging of this is the script. This is how it's going to happen. And it's to condition people. That's what all these films are used for, to condition them and get them ready for it. There's a lot of predictive programming in this storyline, and the reason for their messaging to break down mental barriers in people, make it easier for them to be led about like puppets. So much. And it's also interesting when we consider that this December 7th, in just a few days, which also marks the beginning of Hanukkah, December 7th is the anniversary of Pearl Harbor, when America suffered sudden attack and sudden destruction, was caught unawares, supposedly. You know, if you really read history, we completely knew it was coming, and it was allowed to happen. Very traitorous. But as far as most of America was concerned, it was sudden destruction. It was a sudden attack. We were caught unawares. That's the same storyline, same pattern, same archetype of Star Wars The Force Awakens, especially this 7th installment. Because when you think, how did Hitler come to power? There was the post-World War I chaos and disarray in Germany and the dissatisfaction with that system and the setup and how it was. And he was able to ride in on that discontentment and the chaos and the disarray and use that to come to power. And that's even the same theme in this Star Wars The Force Awakens of after the Empire has been cracked from Episode 6 and the rebels have gotten power, this new evil villain's going to be able to come into the power vacuum and gain power, etc. It's a massive parable. It really is. Just like Hitler came to power the first time, he's going to be doing it again. There's going to be sudden destruction. There's going to be massive sudden destruction is what the Bible tells us. When you hear them call for peace and safety, sudden destruction comes. And that's what the Antichrist is going to be riding in on. He's going to be bringing literally order out of chaos that they create. They know it's coming. Just like Pearl Harbor, they know it's coming. They allow it to happen because they're the ones setting it up. So it's very sobering that anniversary date is also coming up in just a few days at the beginning of Hanukkah, which also commemorates when the Jews regained control of Jerusalem. And when we look at the geopolitical events going on in the world right now, I don't know what's going to happen. I really don't. I don't know what's going to happen. But we can see things are coming together for sudden destruction. And we need to be sober-minded. We need to really set aside all the distractions and make sure we are ready. Because sudden destruction is coming. And it's going to be very brutal. And it's going to allow a new leader to emerge onto the scene. Then there's also a celestial event that's happening on the exact same day. And remember in our last video we talked about how Hanukkah is the Feast of Dedication, when they rededicated a temple and they celebrated the 8 days of the Feast of Tabernacles again. And we were talking about how it's literally a time echo of what should have happened 3 months ago. And we also looked at how the blood moon happened right at the beginning of the Feast of Tabernacles 3 months ago too. So in a sense, we almost should not be surprised that there's a lunar celestial event happening right at the beginning of Hanukkah, the Feast of Dedication, which is the Feast of Tabernacles in a sense. That's what it's commemorating. We are seeing an echo. It's a celestial sign. What is happening? The waning crescent moon will occult or pass in front of the planet Venus, the bright morning star, as seen from North America on Monday, December 7th. But that's not all. Westward, across the international dateline on morning of December 8th, sky watchers in Australia and the Far East will be treated to a close pairing of the crescent moon and Venus, very reminiscent of the Islamic crescent and star symbol that graces many national flags. So they're going to out more westward, they're going to be seeing a lunar crescent and star symbol almost at the exact same time that North America is going to be seeing the moon pass in front of Venus. And at the same time, on the 7th and 8th, there's going to be a Comet Catalina that's going to be within just 5 degrees of this Moon-Venus pair on both the morning of the 7th and the 8th. This is a celestial sign that should catch our attention. Another lunar event on the same echo of the exact same Feast of Tabernacles. And the Bible tells us to look for the signs in the heavens. Changes are coming to our world real soon. I don't know when, I don't know what's going to happen, but we need to pay attention. And there are celestial signs going on in conjunction with what is going on down on the geopolitical, or even with what Satan's doing. There's a lot of signs and messages on all points. Satan's getting his disciples ready with his messaging and systems. And Christ, through wisdom of revealing what's going on, but then also with the celestial signs that's been going on too, that we've been pointing out over our past few videos, they're pointing to this exact same time period too. We need to be very vigilant. We need to be ready because something is about to happen. Sudden destruction is coming, and it's looking like it's going to be sooner than we expect. We don't know the day or the hour, but the Bible does say you will see the day approaching, which even intimates that his revealing, his coming will be right before we would anticipate that day arriving. We should always be ready. We should always have our lamp trimmed and sin out of our lives and ready to meet our Savior face to face. So this celestial event is happening on the same days that so much is coming together. And right at the tail end of this 40 days of Noah as well. And then also on the 8th is the anniversary of John Lennon's death. And we looked before at all his connections with Imagine and Satan. He was a tool of Satan. The big use of him. And we talked about his song, Imagine, which is all about rebellion against God. And how it was promoted at the 2012 Olympics. And they made a big deal of it and pushed it up. And now we're coming at this particular marker. He was killed deliberately, I think, as a marker. And you can see the definite Sun Apollo references in his memorial there. So much coming together, folks. I don't know what's going to happen. I don't know the details. But even a blind monkey can tell you things are not getting better and things are getting worse. And we can see a perfect storm coming together. We need to be sober. We need to be vigilant. We need to check our lamps and make sure, what will Christ find in our lamp when he returns? Will he find it empty? Will he find it full of the world? Will he find our lamp trimmed? Will he find it burning? Where will he find us? I hope and pray that he will find you close to him, because that's where you've been staying all along. And keeping your hands and heart clean and open communications with God in prayer all day long. Be ready. Seek and serve him first and highest above all else. Maranatha.